Chris Soutar, Vice President of Managed Services at Entré Computer Solutions, a locally owned and operated service provider located in Rockford, Illinois. Chris, welcome to the Now That's It podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
You bet. Well, I don't know if we really spent a lot of time working with each other. I know you've been very, very, very involved in the Enable community, and you worked with Stephanie and some of my other colleagues. But there were definitely a group of folks that were saying, man, Chris really has this pretty unique story. You got to get on the phone with him and talk about it. So I'm really looking forward to today, and I can't wait for everybody else to hear your story.
Yeah, I'm, I think we've crossed paths a little bit, but,
Yep.
I'm interested and excited to, spend a little bit more time with you here.
Sounds great. So you and I had, we were talking a little bit about this right before. You and I had a little different sort of upbringing, right? I was sort of raised with computers. You not so much. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I am the opposite of the prototypical IT person. I was never involved in computers. I mean, we had the electronics and things like that, but computers were always kind of a necessary evil for a long time for me. We never grew up, taking computers apart and, skeleton things back together and, playing computer games or anything along those lines. It just so happened here we are, along the way. But I'm definitely much more involved than I used to be. But yeah, this whole IT world was not what the plan was at all.
Yeah. I go back, I won't date myself. I probably will with this, but I go back to the days where getting on the internet meant taking a phone and putting it on a modem. And then whoever was in the house couldn't use the phone the rest of the night while you were online. So
and then somebody picked up the phone and then
that's right. And then you broke your connection. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. So you're going to school and you got a part-time job at one of my favorite joints. Where was that? Best Buy, huh?
At Best Buy, yep. Where every good IT person starts.
What were you doing at Best Buy and what was that like?
So part-time, I was stocking shelves. I worked in a grocery store and, it made sense for them to say, hey, you know how to stock shelves, come stock shelves over here. So, you're unloading trucks at night and, you're just trying to make, and, a couple extra bucks here and there, so maybe I can eat a little bit better while I was in school for a week. But yeah, that's kind of where this all started, is just stocking shelves at Best Buy.
And then you didn't have any computer experience, as you mentioned, but they threw you in the computer department.
Yeah, I had nothing. I had no experience whatsoever going into computers. And I mean, we kind of had a conversation and they're like, you know what, you're going to be done with school. Obviously, you're going to need a job. You're probably not going to be here forever. Why don't you just come on here full time? You've got something to start with. And then if things work out and you're here for a while, great. If they don't, okay. But yeah, they're like, and on top of all that, we're going to put you in computers. So what do you know? So it was definitely a crash course right away of learning how to read those little tags.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about school. So as you mentioned, you didn't grow up on computers. You didn't go to school for computers. What were you going to school for?
I went to school for communications because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to be, I'm a big sports guy. So I felt like I wasn't the athlete, but maybe if I can do some of the things like work in PR or marketing or advertising, I can get as close as I can to a sports type, job or something along those lines. I mean, that was really what I wanted to do. And it just, I took a couple sales classes towards the end of college just because I needed easy credits. Lo and behold, it turns out to probably be the best 4 classes or 5 classes that I took the whole time there. 4 years of college, a degree you don't use. And then it's those couple core classes that help out.
College is interesting for a lot of, at least Americans. I feel like a lot of folks, we still have the trades, which are so important, but a lot of folks, because their parents went to school, you feel like you've got to go to school. I was just like you. I had no idea. I think I changed my major at Ohio State like 17 times. Now you found something. You're just like, I just need to get the degree, right? Like
I just need to get out.
Yeah.
I just need to do the 4 years and get out. And yeah, it is, and it was during that time. Definitely, you went to high school, and then everybody went to college.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you might do or you might not do. It was just the thing that everybody did. So
Yeah.
so off I went.
Yeah. So you're working part-time while you're in college. And then you graduate and they offer you a full-time position, which had to be reassuring. But you're probably thinking to yourself, like, am I going to work at Best Buy for the rest of my life? And meanwhile you had gone to school for journalism and you're thinking, man, I'd love to be a sports writer or something like that. But something happened, right? Like someone came into Best Buy and it sort of changed your life trajectory, huh?
Yeah, it did. It did quickly too.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying working full time. I've got some extra money. Like you said, I'm probably not going to be here forever, but this is okay for the time being.
Yeah.
I'm in my early 20s, so I have very, very few responsibilities, anyways. Yeah, and one day, I kind of made my living during the back to school and the holiday seasons. It was really easy for me as somebody who didn't know anything about computers to start selling computers to people because they trusted me. Just so happened the owner of Entré came in and was looking for a computer game for his kid during that time. And I just happened to be the person to help him. And then he would just start kind of coming, and I didn't know who he was. I knew of Entré. We would send people there all the time. This was during like the Windows XP to Windows 7. Nobody wanted Windows 7. So we would send them to Entré. They can get you XP devices. It's fine. But yeah, he came in and started listening and watching, and eventually gave me a call, and here we are. I mean, long story short, but yeah, we definitely we hit it off right away, and we started talking, and he had a spot.
Wow. So Entré had to be a pretty well-known business or service provider at the time to have a relationship with Best Buy where you were sending them that direction, right? So tell us a little bit about Entré sort of as you joined. What was the company like?
Yeah. So, Entré started in 1983. So they were one of those big national chains at the time, Entré. I think they were Entré Computer Services or something along those lines. But along the way, they had broken out as far as franchises go. And Mike and Kurt Broski, two brothers, Mike had worked here since, the early 80s on things. And so they ended up buying the company. So we were traditionally a break fix company, that was doing what every other IT person or every other IT company was doing at that time. Supplying servers, going out and fixing issues, really was a reactive type situation. But I think at that time everybody was doing it.
That's right.
And we were just kind of getting into the mold of maybe not strategically changing things, but definitely changing up our business model a little bit. Outside sales to inside sales, teams and really getting into that idea and maybe having a little bit more of an outsourced presence. But yeah, in this community, very well known. So it made that kind of connection very easy when we were looking for things.
Awesome. So you must have made quite the impression on the owner. He saw your sales skills, right? So he brings you on in the sales department, right?
Yes.
And you said it was inside sales, is that right?
I was doing inside sales. Yep. And whatever impression I made, definitely was a lot of smoke and mirrors, because coming into this, as I said, I had no experience. They're asking me, what APs are and all that.
Yeah. So, well, you know what they say, you fake it till you make it, right? You sort of figure it out on the way. And I've gotten to know you over the last year or so, and your personality you're very charismatic. So you have that personality that definitely works for a salesperson. So you probably figured out how to generate a quote. So outside of those few sales classes that you took in college, and your experience at Best Buy, which is selling, commercial PCs, no sales experience, and all of a sudden were you the inside sales guy?
No,
or was there? Yeah.
God, I was with a group of people who also were much more willing to teach me along the way of how to do this.
Awesome. So you guys you did a bunch of different things, right? Like you were reselling hardware. You guys did some training software in there. Can you talk a little bit about like what Entré was like besides just a a VAR and an IT shop? What types of
Yeah, I
other
mean, we
things?
were we were doing everything. We had the in-house service center, which we still have now. I mean,
Hmm.
PC is a little bit more throwaway at this point in time, but back then, I mean, that was multiple people in there repairing PCs and printers and everything like that. Yeah, we had a training center here. We would have classes hosted for, hey, we want to teach people how to use Excel VBA or pivot tables, or sometimes you get a couple high end IT people and you get like, all right, we're going to do a Windows Server 2008 or an SBS class or something like that. And so yeah, we were really a one stop shop for IT,
Awesome.
not just supporting but also educating and teaching. So
That's great. And, you guys were pretty well established at the time. And it sounds like you went through a handful of sort of transformations, right? You added new service lines.
mhm.
You sort of were, if not following the trends, you were ahead of the trends in a lot of different cases. And so business was going really well, right? When you started there. Talk a little bit about you as a salesperson. So you did inside sales for a number of years, right? And how did you grow? How did you sort of grow up through the company?
Yeah, so I was doing inside sales for a couple years at that
Yeah.
point in time, and it's really, again, it's not. Eventually, you get to the point of fake until you make it, but then you're actually putting together these configurations and stuff, and you got to learn a little bit about it
Yeah.
because, I mean, you're presenting these things to IT managers at the same time, and they can see right through you. If you have
Mm,
no idea what you've put in there. So it definitely was a lot of learning, a lot of listening, a lot of just involving myself in meetings that I probably had no business being a part of, but definitely pulling information from where I needed. And I think I look back at all those times as how I've grown as far as, being in sales. I look at those as like key things because I can go back and I can say, I stole that from that person. I stole that from him. I learned how to do that from her. And I just kind of picked what I wanted and made it all kind of come together. But it was definitely a learning process.
sure.
And you pick up a lot of stuff along the way that you just have no interest in, and you don't really know what you're talking about, but you're like, I get it. I know
Yeah.
I know how it all fits together as far as that puzzle goes.
Yeah. So you got pretty good at sales, at least in your mind. You felt like, hey, I'm doing a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
And the business was sort of changing, right, at Entré. I think you talked a little bit about how, even business sort of slowed down. Like maybe you didn't even feel the challenge anymore. Is it what was sort of happening?
Yeah, so it was during that time of, the economy and the recessions were starting up a little bit and things were
Hmm.
changing a lot. And I think every salesperson goes through it and they feel like they've either plateaued or they've gotten too good for this, or, they've got it all figured out. And it really sometimes takes that slap to the face to say, wait a minute, you're not maybe as good as what you think you are. There's always room for improvement and always room for growth. So it was definitely, the business was changing, the IT landscape was changing. I mean, we were getting into things down at this level, kind of, that small to medium business level that just wasn't there when I first started.
Hmm.
Virtualization and then the managed services buzzwords and the focus on security and not being able to tell a customer, when they called in, oh yep, we've got you scheduled for a week from now, and we'll have somebody on site and they'll help you out. Yeah, so it was changing dramatically and very quickly.
Hmm. So you had a little bit of a change of heart, right? You decided to go and maybe see what was available, see if the grass was greener on the other side, and look at another company, right? You left Entree.
I left.
Oh,
I was done. I was freshly married. We had a small child at that time. I'm like, you know what? If I can do it here and I figured it out, I can do it anywhere and figure it out. So yeah, we left behind IT and we took a little bit of a detour doing some trucking logistics sales
wow.
um, in a very corporate, very structured environment.
Yeah.
Uh,
What was that conversation like at home, right? You just have a child and you've got a pretty solid, secure job. I'm sure you were
mhm.
making decent money, and all of a sudden you say, honey, I'm leaving. What was
Yeah,
that like?
thankfully she's the most supportive person that I could have
Yeah.
on the back end, and she's like, you know what, if you don't think that this is working, and you don't think you're happy, you got to go out and be happy and do what you need to do. So
Yeah.
while she might have also thought all of those things of like, I don't know if he's going to really figure this all out, she trusted it. She trusted the
Mm-hmm.
process. She bought into it too, and thought, hey, he's got to be happy with what he's doing. And at that point in time, I just wasn't. It was a struggle for everybody at that point. While we were still doing well here, the budgets were getting tighter, things were going
Mm-hmm.
away. There was a shift in idea of, okay, we're not going to invest in people anymore. We're gonna, the industry's turning over and the workforce is turning over. So I felt like, all right, let's get ahead of this and make the change.
So the culture shifted quite a bit at Entré, which was another one of those reasons. By the way, we hear that a lot. Like if that small company turns into a not a necessarily a fun place, or at least you're not challenged, right? Things are a lot more difficult to do.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it is time to step away. So you step away and you do the trucking logistics. Tell me a little bit about that, Chris. Like, what was a day for you? Like, what type of things were you selling? Like, how did that work?
I was selling freight. I was
Yeah.
selling the idea of somebody else is going to come pick up your freight.
Yeah.
And it was a very dramatic shift as far as
Mhm.
what it was. But at the time, I was looking for something different. I was looking for something new and exciting. However, I definitely wasn't ready for a corporate mentality in a corporate environment, being away for so long. I mean, you were down to the minute of what you were doing.
Yeah.
Why weren't you doing this? Why weren't you on the phone? Why weren't you calling people? What did you sell today? What did you sell yesterday? This constant drive for a number that I didn't see, as big of a value in as what I had done before. But it was that chase for a new, what's the grass look like over here?
Yeah.
And thankfully, I didn't leave here on bad terms.
Right.
No bridges were burned. I still had, all the tolls were paid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a different world.
Gotcha. So you realize, and how long did you do the trucking
I
logistics?
did 9 months.
Okay.
So it took me like 6 months to realize
Yeah,
I sucked.
that's good. And then it probably took you 3 months to realize, like,
Mhm.
I'm not going to do this anymore, right? Like,
Right.
it's not going to get any better. So you put in your 2 weeks, and did you have a plan at the time, Chris?
I didn't even put in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
I came back on a Monday morning
Yeah.
and I said, I'm not going to come back. And
Yeah.
I turned in all my stuff and I went home. And I mean, my wife knew I was at
Yeah.
the point, but I don't think
Yeah.
she was ready for me to walk in the door at, 8 o'clock right after
Yeah.
I left and come back and say, why are you here? I had one plan, and it was to get rehired at Entré.
Yeah.
And I sat here and I called and I emailed probably every day until I finally eventually got rehired, but that was the only plan.
Yeah.
But I was, you get to a point and you got to have a job.
Yeah.
You just bought a house, you're recently married, you got a young kid, you got to pay the bills. So I mean, it was either Entré or maybe some part-time job selling DirecTV somewhere, or, I mean,
Yeah.
it was a leap of faith.
Yeah.
So
Once a salesman, always a salesman. I'm sure
Exactly.
you could have gotten somewhere else, but it's good that you realized after you had left that, you know what, the grass isn't always greener. And I really did like that culture. And even though
Mhm.
things were going south, that can change, and I can be part of that change, right? So I actually wrote this down. You called, and to your surprise, they didn't have a spot, right? So after 1 million calls, that's what I wrote. After 1 million calls, it probably wasn't 1 million,
yeah.
but it seemed like it was every day for a long time. Then they finally brought you back, right?
Yeah. And it probably was close to 1 million.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a call, in the morning and, hey, what, you still don't have anything? And then call in the afternoon. Are you sure you really don't have anything?
Yeah.
But yeah, they were changing too. And thankfully me moving away was perfect timing for everybody.
Gotcha.
Because I was coming back and they were looking to get into this whole managed services game.
Yeah.
And they didn't know where to go either.
Yeah.
So this was a perfect, like, we can put everything in here, and if it doesn't work, we can cut ties very easily.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I bet on myself.
That's awesome. Let's talk about that. What got you, where had you really heard about managed services, and where did you sort of figure out like this was the future and I should do some work on this and I could be the one to bring it here? How'd you get excited about it?
So before I left, we were dabbling in it very lightly.
Yeah.
We'd kind of seen this idea of like, hey, somebody will pay us every month to look at their networks. But we never really went full force into it. And they had always looked at it as far as a revenue stream that could be potentially there. We were doing some really like low key type, checkup type services. You go out there every month and you document everything, and then you'd apply all the patches, and then we'd go away for a month, and when they brought me in and they said, hey, you know what, we went to an Ingram micro concert or conference. We were, talking about this, and they said, hey, if you really want to do this, you have to commit to it. And they're like, if you want to be here and do this, we want you to learn this. We want you to understand it. So you're going to have to help us show value for commitment as well. It was a combination of two things. I always thought it was a good idea at the beginning. I just thought it was a really cool concept and a really good idea. The other side of it is everybody in my house needs to eat. so I better be committed to this thought process and idea. But when I really started going under the hood and getting everything, it didn't take long to get very committed to the idea because I knew what it could do and what the power was behind it.
But not everybody was on board, right? At Entré, like it took some convincing. I mean, even the opportunity that you had, right, was like, look, you've got 6 months, right, or something, or 3 months, right, like something like that. They give you a very
3 months.
Yeah. So what do you think the resistance or the opposition was back in those days to managed services? Was it still too new of a thing, or did they?
I think I think it was still too new of a thing.
Yeah.
But I think you also, I'm working with a number of people who had been here for 10, 15, 20 years at that time, who had always seen our way work. So for me to come in, and I think if I wasn't here previously and tried to come in fresh, that I wouldn't have had the success that I had, but I already had some relationships built up. So it made it a whole lot easier from that standpoint. It was still, though, an uphill battle. I mean, you still got people that I'm like, I'm not going to have you now go out every day to a different company or go out to 5 different companies in a day and work on things. I'm going to have a guy sit here and be a help desk person, and they're going to call us when there's a problem, and we're going to fix it right there. So, I mean, people looked at it as taking money out of their pockets. I'm not billing enough hours. I want to drive 2 hours because then I can bill drive time. And it was a real culture shift for a lot of people. And some people bought in, and a lot of people, though, it took a little while to get them, on board with what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's interesting that you came from the sales side and you were the one that was sort of the master planner behind this, because number one, like how you sell managed services is really what's going to make or break you. Like a technician, whether they're billing time against an agreement or they're billing time against just a time and materials type of a thing, it doesn't really matter. They're doing this work, right? But when you get out there and you talk to a customer that's not used to paying on a monthly basis for their IT, you got to have a good story, right? Because the first question is going to go, is it cheaper? And you're going to say, no, it's not cheaper, right? It likely may be a little bit more expensive, but what you're going to get is uptime, right? Like you're going to have your business online. You're not going to have to worry about it. And we're going to go, well, what about your on-site? And it's like, we're going to work a lot of this behind the scenes. You're not even going to know we're there. And so having that messaging is so important. And you from the sales side, I think we even talked about it. One of the reasons you were so excited about it is it was kind of what the partners, your customers were asking for. They were like, we need to be like always online. We need to have something. We need to ensure that our IT needs can be met. And the only way to do that is to sign up for an agreement, a contract, right? For the next X number of months or whatever it is.
Yeah. And it definitely is, you're not going in and saying, hey, I'm going to save you direct money. Here's where I can show you what it is. Actually, I'm going to double your cost or triple your cost, what it's going to be. And I'll say it's a little bit different now as far as that, because I have a little bit easier time as far as a message goes. But at that time, you're not focusing on security. No. You're not focusing on, this cyber insurance and all these types of things that are coming out there. I'm really selling on the idea of I'm going to keep you up and I'm going to keep you working. And, along the way, also, I'm going to do these patches and, maybe we'll do some extra things. But, it really was focused on uptime.
Yeah.
And that's really what it was. But we did have some clients that were starting to get that idea of, I can't be
Yeah.
down. Like,
Right.
we can't not be here.
As you move up market, which I'm sure Entré did as well, that you move away from the small mom and pop shops, that uptime piece becomes critical, right?
Yeah.
And you're actually talking about, well, what applications can you not lose, right? That are, and that's what you're building your practice around. So
Mm-hmm.
when you came in, obviously you have the sales background, but did you have a partner that was sort of helping you on the operation side, or was it really you saying, this is what our managed service offering is going to look like? How did you build it? How did you sort of bring managed services, or elevate managed services? I know you were doing it a little bit, but
Yeah, the great thing about here, and one of the main reasons I came back, was the ownership.
Yeah.
And the ownership that they give everybody as an individual. So this was really quickly became my baby. And this just became, what do you guys want to do? What do you want to do with it? And I worked at the very early stages on, with getting on the phone with, at that time, it would have been, the Logic Now people, of who can I talk to? Who can I pick brains from? Who can I get invested with? Who can who can you set me up with? So, I mean, I met with people, I would have phone calls with people. I would call my sales rep daily and just sit there and bother him and, for ideas and information and thought processes of, what to do, because I really had a clean slate to work with. And it was really, how do you see it working? And how do you see it, providing value and things like that? So, I mean, I had free reign. A lot of people don't get that, but I had 100% control over what I wanted to do, as long as I can figure out a way to make money at it.
That's great. How long did it take you guys, Chris, to really make managed services sort of a mainstay, or at least a point where it moved the needle enough to where the owners would go, yeah, there's an opportunity here that we were missing out?
I would say probably, I would think maybe a year or two. I think once we started getting some of these larger named clients, who were kind of coming towards us and understanding what it wasn't any longer, maybe a monitor of a couple servers and maybe a handful of workstations. Once you start hitting, like all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's a company that's got 10 servers, an IT person, 75 workstation, you get a couple of those under your belt and they're like, wait a minute, what is he doing? Like, things are kind of working out here a little bit. And I would also say, when the invoices started to get to be that second page, then all of a sudden it's like, there's a lot of money here. There's a lot of things that are coming through here. And then outside of that, then you start looking at clients who get a lot more invested with us, because they're starting to see the value that we're bringing. And now we're no longer talking transactions, we're talking strategic. So we're talking, we're at the table of these conversations that we weren't at before, because we're helping them drive, this is where good money can go into. This is where we can provide value to increase your competitiveness in the market. That's when I started to get, getting the salespeople as well, some of my outside people. But ownership started really taking a little bit closer look, which was weird at first, because then I'm like, why are they so involved? Like, I had a year of just doing whatever I want. Now all of a sudden you guys have questions.
Yeah, the predictability of managed service is such a beautiful thing too, especially once you have a finely tuned machine going, right? I mean, to be able to know, like, in the early days, you were signing folks to like 12, 24, even 36-month contracts, which I know, that may be going by the wayside nowadays. But to be able to see, like, these folks are going to be paying us at least this much for the next however many months is really great. And then you've built that trust, right, Chris? And then you can say, hey, we've just released this new backup offering, and it's better than the last backup offering. And this is what we can do. We can actually replicate your data. And they said, well, we trust you because we haven't had an issue in the last 12 months. So just give it to us. We'll pay more, right? I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
There was so much organic growth that came along with it, but building up that trust. I still have my first person that I signed up for managed services still on that contract. And I mean, anytime I see him, I still, and they're a very small company, but
Yeah.
they're a big name here in Rockford, as far as people know them and things like that. And that's the one I always look at. I'm like, as long as he's still here, I'm still doing everything all right.
Yeah. By the way, we sort of glossed over this, but you just mentioned your first company that you brought on. When you came back, we talked a little bit about 3 months, and you were given a specific target, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
needed to get 6 deals over
Yeah,
that 3 month period of time. How quickly did you get those 6 deals?
by the end of the month.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
and nowadays 6 deal sounds like, small, potatoes here. But at that point in time, when we're really trying to get it, off the ground, we've had
Yeah.
some turnover in there. Maybe we've got, a couple hundred devices, maybe, across the board. For us to try to go get 6 deals in what they gave me 3 months to go do it sounded like a little bit of a daunting task, but and then it went back to what I was doing day one, inviting myself to meetings that I had no business being a part of, sitting in conversations that I wasn't supposed to be at. I had to create a culture, and I had to create an idea, and I had to do it both internally and externally. So once I started, getting people to buy into it, it's like a truck going downhill.
Awesome.
It continues to build steam.
How obviously managed services is a big deal for Entré. Can you give us like just an approximate idea, like how much of Entré's sort of total revenue? Obviously, you still do hardware resales and some pro serve project work, but about how much of it of your revenue is managed services?
Yeah,
today?
I would say probably it's getting closer to a third now of all of our revenue.
That's great.
Between Enable and some of the other options that we have out there as far as security goes. I mean, my goal is to make it all. I mean,
Sure.
that's what I want.
Yeah.
But if I can continue to grow it and continue to show that value, that's where I want to be.
It's beautiful when that project work and the managed services work can sort of feed off of each other. That's something that I have a ton of experience with. Like a lot of times we get brought in, oh, we need to help with this migration. And then, you know what, why don't you guys just continue to manage this for us? And so it's kind of a beautiful thing when ProServe can feed managed services. And then conversely, like if you're doing managed services for a customer, every 3 years they need hardware replacements. So you're getting that business, and then you're getting that installation, project. So it can work really good when you have both sort of finely tuned and clicking. And then it helps from like a hiring perspective, because over the number of years, when it's time to pull that trigger and bring that other body in, or what can be done. Yeah, that's great. Just is obviously you've grown the revenue to almost a third or over a third. Are there any doubters left? Right. I mean, I know the old school crew was still left in Entré. Like, have you justified managed services, and has managed services become mainstream enough? I think it has. But are there like, does everybody believe in managed services now?
I think everybody gets it now.
Yeah.
And if they don't, I'll remind them to get it.
Yeah.
I have one of my senior engineers though who jokes around with me all the time, and he goes, I still to this day don't know how you did it, and I still don't know if it's gonna stick around, but it seems to be everybody wants it.
Yeah.
I thought personally that when I finally made it and got the people in this area to understand it was when I started getting phone calls asking, are you guys doing that managed services thing that I keep on hearing about? That's cool. When I knew, okay, we're here. Like we've gotten to the point where I feel this is gonna stay, it's gonna stick around. It was that nice reoccurring thing versus me calling up trying to convince people, to them just basically calling us saying, hey, we need whatever you guys have.
Yeah, that referral side of the business is a beautiful thing. When you're growing up, when you're starting to grow, and I love that feedback there, because what would have happened if they would have said, no, Chris, we're not going to do managed services, or we're going to quit on that? You wouldn't have had those deals, right? I mean, that's great. So tell me you talked a little bit about culture. I know that was one of the reasons, you had a couple, right? You were ready for something new, something different back in the day, but the culture had also changed. What's the culture like today at Entré? And can you talk a little bit about, maybe how it's changed?
Yeah, I think we have a really good culture going right now. We have a nice mix of young and veteran
Hmm.
type engineers, people who've been here for 30 plus years, people who've been here for 6 months, but I think everybody's buying into the general message and the idea. We're very involved with our client base to this day. I mean, we
That's
still
great.
want to be in those meetings. I still do my QBRs. I'm still making sure that we're involved with things. We just have kind of grown with what's out there, and I think I've taken on more of a consulting type role versus a sales rep type role,
Hmm.
where now it's working through insurance applications and trying to stay along the where everything's going and trying to stay up with everybody else, and playing that MSSP type role.
Sure.
Maybe we're not fully in that, but we definitely have all of our I know where to find all of the ducks that I need when I need them. So
That's awesome. All right, so you've had a bunch of changes in your career. You're
mhm,
doing something. Your career is not what you went to school for. Mine isn't
I
either,
don't
by the way. Most people I don't think are. Maybe
yeah,
doctors and lawyers are, but us commercial folks, there, yeah, we find work where work is. But it's great. So you've turned into something that I think you should be really proud of. You built a great department, a great team there. Um, when did you know that this was it? This is the question I always like to ask. When did you know that I had done the right thing, I had made the right change, that I had done it?
I think there's a couple different things. When you start to see people directly hired because of what you've done, from me, from a professional standpoint, that was that was a huge moment when I'm starting to grow out a help desk team, and I'm looking around the room and I'm like, all of these people are here because of what we built along the way, then you look at some of the relationships that you built over sometimes, and you got some milestones that come along, and when you start to be um, invited to different events and different talking points and being on podcasts with you, and making some lasting friendships in the community. I think that was a huge thing too. That was a when I'm having conversations and people are asking me, how did you do it? That was eye opening for me.
That's great.
Especially when I'm, you know, when I started this early on, I was in my early 30s. And I'm having people who are, in their 50s and 60s who own a business and are like, hey, wait, can we talk for a couple minutes? I'm like, this is weird,
Yeah.
but it's all those moments that you kind of have along the way, and it's just like it's that reassurance every time you're looking for, because I think that every sales rep goes through the process of I can sell anything,
Sure.
but then you look at those points and you're like, wow, I've made differences along the way. I mean, it really helps. I mean, it provides that sort of value. I take it personally when we lose a client or I lose a deal,
Hmm.
because I know what we provide and I know who I have in the back, helping me provide that, whether it be you guys, whether it be my help desk team, whether it be ownership. I know what we have and I know it's a solution that I can count on. I've always been able to count on, you guys.
It's awesome. The MSP community is amazing.
It is.
Like it's one of these groups. Like there's definitely competition, but when we all get into a room at like our event, like our
Mhm.
Empower event or one of our business transformation programs, there's this, hey, look, these are colleagues of mine. Like I'd love to tell them the mistakes I made, and I don't want them to make the same ones because that was awful for me. You've definitely been somebody that's been very involved in the Enable community. You've helped Steph and some of the others, and shared your experiences, and I appreciate that, Chris. Like that's great for you to be able to share that, and that helps some of our other partners. But I just love this community that obviously has developed over the number of years as managed services has become more popular. So, as you mentioned, I love that you have that personality that is all about, yeah, I'm here to make some money, but I also want to see the benefits, right? I,
Yeah.
I want to see, I'm helping a number of other people have like support their families, right,
Mhm.
because of what you've built there, and I think that's such a powerful thing to live by.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
I love that it's not that cutthroat, hold
Yeah.
all the secrets, you know.
Right.
We're all trying to, at the end of the day, do the same thing, you
Yep.
know. Like, why not work together? Why not
That's
help?
right.
You know, we all want to help people be secure or do the right things, or
Yep.
you know, so let's all, you know, let's have our kumbaya moment
That's great.
and all get along. So
We always get along over a beer at the bar too. No matter
absolutely.
what, like it's always good. So, what's next for Entré and maybe yourself, Chris? What's the future hold?
It's continuing to build the security. That's, I mean, you hate to sound cliche, but that is where it's at right now.
Sure.
And it's really, you know, staying as up to date as possible and staying as far ahead as possible that you can. I mean, you know, we're investing heavily within that. You know, we're trying to invest alongside with our clients. I feel like in our area, at least, we're a little bit ahead of the game, which is perfect. You know, because now I've seen some of the pitfalls and I've seen some of the, you know, the mistakes that we made along the way, and I've been able to talk to people maybe in a little bit more mature areas of the country or the world, you know, who have had success doing certain things. So I mean, that's really our continued focus right now, is just continuing to help our clients. I mean, our goal is to raise productivity and lower costs, you know, and if that helps, if productivity is keeping them online, keeping them safe, keeping them secure, that's what our job is here. And that's what my goal is to continue to grow all of those platforms.
Not ready to jump into the trucking industry again?
I'm not. I hear it's really well paid now to drive across
Sure.
the country, but I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit past that point.
Fair enough. Chris, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. I wish you and the rest of the Entré team the absolute best. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate everything you guys do for us. So thank you.